My name is Chloe Anderson. I'm 30 years old and employed as a fiscal specialist. I previously thought family meals signified comfort, joy, and bonding. Yet actuality struck me in the most severe manner feasible. Simply last month at our residence in Des Moines, my sibling abruptly grabbed my latest iPhone 17 Pro from the table. She sneered and ridiculed. This is merely an inexpensive imitation. Before I could even respond, she broke it in two snap and threw it back like it was meaningless garbage. My parents erupted in laughter, their mirth resonating through the space while I sat motionless in astonishment. Not one apology, not one utterance of worry. All this while, I've been remitting $1,500 every single month for her MBA studies at Drake University, on top of supplying half of my family's expenses, food, services, all things. And that's the appreciation I receive, public embarrassment at the dining table. But she didn't cease there. She bent in nearer, loud enough for everybody to hear Chloe's too frugal to purchase anything authentic. My parents agreed along, still smiling as if my self-respect was something I owed them. That instant ignited a flame within me. I wasn't merely wounded. I was finished. Finished being their cash machine, finished tolerating their disregard, finished giving up while they chuckled at my cost. What I did next altered everything permanently, and trust me, they never anticipated it. Before we explore my tale, inform me in the comments what hour is it where you're viewing and which metropolis are you in. I wish to see just how far my narrative has journeyed. The silence of my apartment contained a fresh kind of strength that night. The meal's pain hadn't diminished, but it energized me now, driving me toward a verdict I'd postponed too long. At 32, I'd established a stable profession as a fiscal specialist, my Des Moines existence, a proof of discipline and determination. Yet my relatives viewed me as an asset, not an individual. I'd directed $1,500 a month into Hannah's MBA at Drake University, a curriculum she considered as a status symbol, while I settled their costs: food, utilities, father's unending vehicle fixes. Hannah, 28, expended my cash on extravagance, her Instagram packed with pictures of foreign journeys and high-end outfits, all while rejecting me as inferior to her. Mom and father never challenged it, their endorsement of her conduct a quiet insult to my face. I seized my device and dialed Sophia, my closest companion, requiring her keen insight. "Chloe, they're exploiting you." She stated, her voice slicing through the late-night interference. "Hannah behaves like she's deserving of your cash, and your parents encourage it. You're not their attendant." Her phrases landed like a reality check, stirring recollections of sacrifices I'd made, weekends laboring extra hours, missing meals out to pay for their expenditures. Sophia didn't soften her speech. "You've provided sufficient. Cease now, or they'll never esteem you." She recalled a period I'd called off a journey to assist with their home loan, only for Hannah to display a new purse. "Establish the boundary," Sophia encouraged. I expressed gratitude to her, her lucidity centering me, and concluded the call with a fire in my torso. Opening my computer, I accessed my banking application. The monitor shone, displaying Hannah's education payment scheduled $500 configured to move tomorrow. My pointer drifted over terminate. I considered mother's speeches regarding relatives foremost, her voice tinged with anticipation, and father's rough quiet whenever I suggested equity. Hannah's conceit replayed in my thoughts, not just tonight, but years of her accepting without gratitude. I selected terminate, the verification sound resonating like a bell of liberation. Alleviation washed over me, sharp and thrilling, but a spark of uncertainty trailed. Would I yield under their stress? Would remorse drag me back? No. I shoved the ideas away, concentrating on the reality I wasn't their cash dispenser anymore. The apartment's quiet intensified my determination. Terminating that transaction was more than a monetary decision. It was a proclamation of my value. I'd invested years supporting Hannah's extravagant existence, permitting mom and father's partiality, all while they handled my sacrifices as due. I imagined Hannah's response when the institution's notification came, her universe of luxury falling apart. Mom and father would be furious, their facade of an ideal family revealed as a falsehood. A silent grin appeared. I'd been their welcome mat too long, but no more. My device vibrated. Mom likely feeling something. I disregarded it, allowing the quiet to talk. This wasn't solely regarding cash, it was regarding esteem, and I was finished pleading for it. I was prepared for the repercussions, prepared to maintain my position. Walking the room, I felt freer, like I'd dropped a load I'd borne too long. Every dollar I'd dispatched Hannah was a decision to maintain harmony, but it had cost me my self-esteem. Sophia's voice echoed in my head. "You merit better." She was correct. I thought of the occasions I'd remained silent as Hannah boasted about her newest indulgence, or when Father dismissed my inputs with a shrug. No longer. The timepiece clicked past midnight every moment, indicating my fresh resolve. Hannah would confront the outcomes of her privilege, and Mom and Father would witness the cost of their prejudice. This was my instant, my boundary. Whatever arrived next, I'd confront it with a power they'd never observed. 2 weeks later, my device illuminated with Father's name. I was in my Des Moines workplace, the gentle clacking of keyboards around me, data sheets shining on my screen. The previous 2 weeks had been a silent revolt since I halted Hannah's education payment, a selection that still felt like a load raised. I hadn't conversed with my parents and the tranquility had been freeing, but Father's call broke that peace. I answered, steeling myself. "Chloe, what on earth did you do?" he shouted, his voice dense with fury. Drake University phoned today. Hannah's been dismissed because her education wasn't paid." His words dripped with accusation, as if I'd perpetrated an offense against the family. "Her MBA is her future," he proceeded. "How could you allow this to occur?" I remained mute, letting his anger exhaust itself. "Resolve this, Chloe," he insisted. "You're expected to assist your sibling." I maintained my voice even chilly. "Father, I stopped the transaction. Hannah doesn't merit my cash." A lengthy pause ensued, then he snapped. "This is self-centered. Relatives back relatives." His words hurt, but they weren't unfamiliar. He'd always anticipated me to bear the responsibility. No inquiries made. I concluded the call, but before I could regain my breath, my device buzzed again. "Mom, Chloe, how could you do this to Hannah?" She began, her tone a blend of pain and reproach. "She's devastated." "You've destroyed her opportunity at a good existence." She started into a protective Hannah, as if I hadn't invested years financing her degree. Hannah, labored so diligently, Mom asserted. "You're deserting your family." I clutched the device, the inequity burning through me. Mom, Hannah accepted me as guaranteed. I stated, my voice like frost. "I'm 28, she's 28. She can manage her own expenses." Mom inhaled sharply, then shifted. "You've always been envious of her accomplishment," she alleged. "This isn't how we brought you up." I reclined, gazing at the office ceiling, their favoritism revealed bare. They never once recognized the $1,500 I dispatched monthly, the extra time I labored to cover their food utilities, even Father's automobile repairs. Hannah used my cash on luxuries, never stating thank you, while Mom and Father applauded her on, "am finished being her financier." I informed Mom, slicing through her appeals. "You're ripping this family apart," she wept. I disconnected, my heartbeat quickening but steadfast. Father called again, leaving a voice message. "Chloe, you owe Hannah this. Resolve it now," he snapped. I erased it, unwavering. Mom's subsequent communication was gentler, scheming. "You're crushing my heart," she stated, voice shaking. "Hannah doesn't merit this penalty." I didn't reply. Their phrases only deepened my resolve, revealing the pattern I'd suffered too long. Hannah could do no incorrect while I was just the supplier. I thought of the sacrifices I'd made, the weekends used, laboring the schemes I'd postponed to keep them solvent. Their fury felt like a fit, a frantic try to keep me compliant, but I wasn't the identical Chloe who'd agreed and paid. My workplace felt like a haven, a location where their requests couldn't reach me. I pictured Hannah likely complaining to Mom and Father, expecting them to intimidate me into submission. But I was finished bending. Their allegations, self-centered, envious, were reflections of their own prejudice. I'd provided sufficient pouring cash and vigor into a family that viewed my endeavors as their right. Father, quote, as rage and mom's remorse trips were intended to break me, but they only honed my lucidity. This wasn't solely regarding Hannah's education, it was regarding dismantling the unfairness I'd existed with for years. I switched off my device, their voices fading into silence. The strain was palpable, but I stood firm, prepared for whatever they'd hurl at me next. This was my boundary, and I wasn't retreating. By Friday, Hannah charged into my apartment, eeing. The door smashed against the wall, her designer shoes tapping angrily on the timber floor. I was lounging on my sofa, browsing work messages on my tablet when her entrance startled me upright. Her face was a tempest of alarm and defiance, her costly handbag swaying as she stationed herself before me. Oh. Chloe, you must resolve this, she demanded, her voice shrill but quivering. Drake University expelled me because you ceased my education payments. Reactivate them now. Her eyes scanned mine, anticipating me to collapse, but I just reclined, unperturbed. Then her tone toughened, poison leaking in. You're so self-absorbed, she hissed. You're ruining my future over some silly resentment. Her accusation landed like a blow, but I was ready for it. I stood, folding my arms, my look steady. Hannah, you ridiculed me at dinner. I stated, my voice frosty but restrained. You labeled my iPhone a fake, shattered it in two, and chuckled like it was insignificant. You've never displayed me respect. Her face flinched, a flash of shame submerged by outrage. It was a prank, she fired back, moving closer, her fragrance intensified the air. You're creating a major issue from nothing because you're jealous of my life. Jealous. The term scorched, but it only strengthened my resolve. I paid $1,500 a month for your MBA, I retorted, staring directly. I covered mom and father's food utilities, even father's automobile fixes, while you flaunted your designer purses. I quote, am finished being your fund. Hannah's jaw tightened, her hands balling into fists. You're penalizing me for being superior to you, she muttered, her voice low and slicing. You've always despised that I'm the one individuals notice. I nearly laughed at the ridiculousness. You're noticed because I financed your way of life. I stated, my tone like ice. Devoid of my cash, you're insignificant. Her eyes widened, wounded, but she didn't yield. You'll regret this, she cautioned, her voice dripping with malice. I'll ensure everybody knows what a self-centered sibling you are. She turned on her heels, rushing out the exit, banging so forcefully it shook the walls. I dropped onto the sofa, my pulse racing, but my choice unshaken. That night, my device buzzed with an alert. Hannah had published on social media a malicious public tirade. My sibling so envious of my achievement she severed my education, she typed. Chloe's too cheap to support family, always has been. She quote, is the sort of individual who'd prefer to see me fail than lift a digit. The post was labeled with my name, visible to her thousands of followers and already gaining momentum. Remarks flooded in her companions, labeling me trivial unknown people, calling me avaricious or unfeeling. Every term was a thrust, the treachery cutting more profoundly than I anticipated. My digits floated over the screen, enticed to reply to reveal her falsehoods, but I halted. Participating would only fuel her theatrics. The pain was genuine, raw, and burdensome, like a weight in my chest. I'd invested years upholding Hannah's world, surrendering my own schemes to keep her solvent. And this was her reply, a public assault to humiliate me into compliance. But as the initial pain faded, a flame grew. Her post wasn't shattering me. It was evidence of her desperation. She believed she could control me with shame, rally her followers to coerce me. But I perceived through it. Hannah's falsehoods only revealed her privilege, her need to portray herself as the casualty. I shut the app, my hands stable, my mind lucid. I'd financed her conceit too long, and this defamation effort wasn't going to alter my decision. My apartment felt like a shelter, a zone where Hannah's phrases couldn't touch me. I thought of the years I'd invested into her late nights, laboring extra time holidays, foregone savings, exhausted all for a sibling who viewed my sacrifices as her entitlement. Her social media ploy was a final attempt to dominate me. But I was finished yielding. The comments from her companions, the strangers' critiques they didn't count Hannah quote as assault, only fortified my resolve. She couldn't shame me into financing for her anymore. I wasn't the antagonist she wished the world to see. I was the sibling who'd finally stated sufficient, and I wasn't reversing. Sunday dinner arrived, but the atmosphere was strained. I entered Mom and Father's Des Moines home, the recognizable aroma of roast hanging, but the air felt dense with anticipation. They'd labeled this a mending meal, but I knew better. It was a snare to drag me back into line. Mom welcomed me with a strained smile, Father with a brief nod, and Hannah sat at the table, arms folded, her gaze evading mine. I took my place, preparing for the unavoidable. Mom cleared her throat, her voice excessively friendly. "Chloe, we're here to mend things," she stated. "Family remains united." Father added, in rough as always, "You must restore Hannah's education. It's your obligation." I stayed quiet, allowing their phrases linger. Then I spoke, my voice, calm but piercing. "Hannah's been existing a life I financed." Diha? I stated, staring directly at her. "Designer handbags, Gucci, Prada, priced at thousands. Journeys to Paris, Dubai, all displayed on Instagram like she merited it." Hannah's face flushed, but she didn't interrupt. "I funded her MBA $1,500 a month while she uploaded selfies in premium class compartments," I continued. "She's never thanked me, never recognized the sacrifices I made." Mom interrupted, defensive. "Hannah merits a good existence," she stated. "She's labored diligently for her degree." I lifted an eyebrow. "Labored diligently? She's been celebrating on my funds while I labored extra time to cover your expenses too." Father bent forward, his voice low. "Chloe, you're part of this family. You don't get to select and choose who you assist." I met his gaze, unblinking. "I'm finished being utilized," I stated. "Hannah's privilege isn't my load." Mom gasped, grasping her napkin. "How can you state that she's your sibling?" I stayed silent, allowing the quiet talk. Their defense of Hannah was foreseeable, but it still ached. They viewed her as the star, the one who merited everything, while my exertions were just anticipated. I reclined, my resolve like metal. "I'm not reinstating the payments," I stated, my tone conclusive. "Hannah can determine her own route." Hannah finally spoke, her voice shrill. "You're just resentful," she alleged. "You can't tolerate that I'm achieving something of myself." I nearly laughed at the paradox. "You achieved nothing," I stated, my terms slicing. "Everything you possess, I paid for. The purses, the journeys, the lifestyle, it's all mine." Her eyes glinted with fury, but she had no retort. Mom leapt in, her voice elevating. "Chloe, you're tearing us apart. Pay the education and we'll progress past this." I shook my head, my quiet louder than phrases. Father slammed his hand on the table. "You owe us this," he stated. "Family doesn't desert family." I stood, shoving my chair back. "Family doesn't exploit family." I answered, my voice cold. "I'm finished." I walked out, their voices fading behind me. Their pressure, their prejudice, it only clarified the inequity I'd endured. I quote invested years financing Hannah's excess, believing it was my responsibility, while Mom and Father encouraged her on. Now they wished me to surrender to keep the pattern going. You see, But I perceived through their shame trips. The dinner wasn't regarding reconciliation, it was regarding control. My automobile engine purred as I drove away, the Des Moines cityscape blurring past. I felt no remorse, only power. They believed they could bully me into compliance. But I was no longer the daughter who'd agree and pay. This was my position, and I wasn't reversing. A week later, the repercussions struck Hannah hard. The letter from Drake University was blunt. She was formally dismissed from the MBA program for overdue education. Without my $1,500 monthly remittances, her scholarly ambitions evaporated, and the opulent existence she'd crafted came tumbling down. Shared contacts murmured about her difficulties. No more indulging on designer outfits. No more flying to Paris or Dubai. She'd vended her Gucci and Prada purses on consignment, gathering together just sufficient for Lee C. Community college brochures now scattered her flat, and she was submitting for beginner positions, her CV slim without the degree she'd boasted about. Her Instagram once, a collection of curated surplus, had gone inactive. Her last post, a mysterious quote about beginning anew. Her descent didn't go unseen. The companions who'd praised her social media assaults on me turned harsh. Screen captures of their remarks inundated my alerts, public jabs at Hannah's cost. No more leader woman vibes, one mocked with a sequence of laughing emoticons. Another typed, "Suppose Chloe's cash was the genuine MVP." The identical group that had branded me avaricious now ridiculed Hannah's lost standing, their allegiance as superficial as her filtered pictures. I scrolled through it all from my Des Moines apartment, the shine of my device lighting the late-night quiet. Observing Hannah, humbled, stung, but it also felt like a settling of accounts. She labeled me envious, depicted me as the villain, but now her own associates revealed her brittleness. Mom showed up at my doorstep the next day, uninvited, her face ashen with anxiety. "Chloe, you must rescue Hannah," she stated, standing in my living area, her hands wringing together. "She's lost her degree, her future, all things. She quotes your sibling." Her voice quivered, but her eyes held that recognizable bias, the one that always placed Hannah first. I rested against the kitchen counter, maintaining my poise. Mom Hannah's, confronting the outcomes of her disrespect. I stated my tone level but firm. She mocked me at dinner, defamed me online, and took my support as guaranteed. I quote, "I'm not her financier anymore." Mom's look hardened. "You're being brutal," she alleged. "Family doesn't desert family like this." I crossed my arms, allowing her phrases linger. "Family doesn't take advantage of family," I countered, my voice piercing but controlled. "Suval." Hannah selected to live a life she couldn't pay for, designer purses, luxury journeys, all on my funds. You permitted her, Mom, and now she's 28, mature enough to confront actuality. Mom's eyes welled with tears, but she persisted. "Just one payment," she begged. "Get her back in school and we'll correct it." I shook my head, the quiet heavy between us. Her despair was tangible, but it only solidified my stance. "No," I stated, my voice like steel. "I've provided sufficient." Mom stared, her shoulders drooping, then turned and left, the door clicking shut behind her. I sank onto my sofa. The apartment's stillness, a sharp contrast to the tempest outside. Hannah's downfall wasn't my victory, but it was fairness. I'd poured years into her late nights, laboring savings, exhausted, while she displayed my cash as her own accomplishment. Her companion's mockery, her dismissal. Mom's hopeless pleas, they all emphasized the reality. Hannah's world depended on me, and without me, it collapsed. Mom wished me to resolve it, to keep performing the supplier, but I was finished. The social media jeers were a reflection to Hannah's own cruelty, and I felt no guilt. My position wasn't regarding vengeance. It was regarding reclaiming my value. I wasn't the sibling who'd yield to pressure. I was the one who'd established a boundary, and I wasn't retreating. On a rainy Tuesday evening, a parcel arrived at my door. The smooth box, wrapped in shiny paper, rested on my Des Moines apartment's doorstep, raindrops gathering on its surface. A note was attached to it, Hannah's penmanship distinct. "So, Chloe, let's progress past this." Hannah, inside, was a Louis Vuitton billfold, its leather immaculate, the sort of extravagance she'd displayed for years. My stomach churned, not with thankfulness, but with realization this was no apology. It was a strategic gesture, an offer to purchase my forgiveness. I placed the box on my kitchen counter untouched and retrieved my device. "Hannah." I texted my digits, steady. I quote, am not altering my decision. Don't squander your time with presents. I sealed the parcel and left it for the messenger to retrieve. Hours later, my device buzzed with her reply. Chloe, please. She typed her tone gentler than I'd ever seen. I'm apologetic for everything. Can we converse? I gazed at the screen, the rain tapping against my windows. Hannah's phrases felt like a last attempt, not regret. Her life had fallen apart, expelled from Drake University. Her luxury acquisitions sold off her social media, now a cemetery of her previous splendor. She wasn't apologetic, she was desperate. I typed back my terms, intentional. There's nothing to debate. You made your selections. Oh. I sent and silenced her number, resolved to maintain the space I'd struggled for. Hannah attempted again the next day, calling twice, leaving a voice message. Chloe, I didn't intend to harm you. She stated, her voice shaking. I simply wish us to be all right. I didn't return the call. Her tries at contact her present, they weren't regarding reconciliation. They were regarding scraping her. Root back to the existence I'd financed, the one she'd lost when I ceased paying her education. I thought of her Instagram once filled with pictures of Paris bistros and designer purses, now silent as her companions mocked her collapse. Her world had disintegrated, and this billfold was her try to reconstruct it on my funds. But I wasn't influenced. I quote, invested years propping her up only to be disrespected. Her despair didn't alter that. Sitting in my apartment, I felt a quiet power descend over me. The family stress. Mom, quote, is begging. Father's commands. Hannah's signals had once burdened me, but not anymore. I recalled the years of sacrifices, laboring extra time to cover Hannah's $500 education payments, skipping my own schemes to settle their expenses. Mom and father had labeled it obligation. Hannah had labeled it her right. Now, with her existence in fragments, I felt no guilt. My verdict to sever her wasn't solely regarding cash. It was regarding reclaiming my value. Hannah's present was a reminder of her privilege, not a connection to mend. I wasn't the sibling she could influence anymore. The rain decelerated outside, and I felt unbound. Hannah, quote, attempts to contact me, her thoughtfully selected present, they were her final actions in a match I'd quit playing. I'd established a boundary, and I wasn't traversing it. Mom and father might still view her as the casualty, but I observed the reality. Hannah, quote, collapse was the outcome of her own deeds. My apartment, once a place of uncertainty, now felt like a haven. I wasn't swayed by her weeping or her billfold. I was finished being the family's supplier, and I was prepared to exist for myself. A month later, the institution's new admissions roster came out. Drake University's site verified Hannah's non-existence. A quiet testimony to her dismissal. Whispers circulated through Des Moines' close community regarding mom and father's partiality, how they'd depended on me to fund Hannah's extravagant existence while dismissing my sacrifices. Neighbors who once invited them to cookouts now maintained their distance. Gossip circulating regarding their unjust handling of me. Mom, quote, reading group grew quieter, and father's golf companions ceased phoning. Their societal position, once a point of pride, was unraveling under the load of their own selections. I heard it all through indirect means, but I felt no contentment, only an odd serenity. Hannah, meanwhile, was striving to reconstruct. She, quote, enrolled in a community college, her aspirations of an MBA substituted by fundamental classes she could manage. Her part-time occupation at a local cafe scarcely covered her expenses, a distant cry from the luxury she displayed. No more designer purses, no more foreign journeys, just a tiny flat and a pre-owned automobile. Her social media remained silent, the lack of her curated posts, a sharp contrast to the existence she'd once portrayed. I didn't monitor her directly, but shared contacts shared the specifics. Hannah was humbled, her assurance shaken, compelled to confront a reality she'd never planned for. I sat in my apartment, the Des Moines skyline shining outside my window, and felt a liberty I hadn't known in years. The load of family anticipations, Mom's begging, Father's commands, Hannah's manipulations had raised. I no longer felt tied to their needs, their prejudices, or their shame trips. My savings were mine again, my time, my own. I'd begun organizing a journey for myself, something straightforward, perhaps a weekend in Chicago just for me. The years of laboring extra time, of funding Hannah's privilege, felt like a remote memory. I wasn't just enduring. I was existing, rooted in a self-regard I'd battled to reclaim. Sophia visited one evening, her visit unexpected but appreciated. We sat on my sofa drinking coffee, the metropolis lights twinkling outside. "You're altered now," she stated, her voice warm but perceptive. "You're not bearing their load anymore. You appear liberated." Her phrases struck me not because they were new, but because they were accurate. Sophia hadn't come to advise me like she had months ago. She was simply here observing the transformation I'd felt developing inside. "I quote, am pleased with you," she included, grinning. You maintained your position." I nodded, a quiet pride settling in. Sophia's phrases weren't guidance, they were a mirror reflecting the power I'd constructed. Looking back, I saw the lesson plainly. Family is supposed to be constructed on mutual esteem, not single-sided demands. When esteem is missing, when individuals take you as guaranteed, it wears away the connections that count. Mom, Father, and Hannah believed they could depend on my generosity permanently, but their privilege led to their own outcomes: lost standing, shattered aspirations, broken ties. I discovered that establishing limits isn't self-centered, it's endurance. Stating no to their demands wasn't regarding penalizing them, it was regarding safeguarding myself. I'd invested years believing family signified sacrifice, but now I understood it signified advocating for my value. Thank you for remaining with my narrative to the conclusion. If you like the story, please don't forget to like and subscribe.